There's something out there that is blocking you from reaching your full potential. Something that is stopping you from being who you want to be. This thing is you. There are certain mentalities that we have in boxes that we put ourselves in that limit us and even prevent us from being where we want to be in life. We can simplify these things in one word: labels. We define the entire world around us using words. Absolutely everything we see, hear, smell, feel, and taste has a word ascribed to it. That feels rough, feels like wood. This sounds loud, sounds like a car horn. That looks unintelligent, must be a mirror. Even the things we have never seen have a word ascribed to it. Things humanity may have never discovered yet. Such words may be thing or that. What is that? Look at that thing. Ugh. We also use words to describe ourselves. I'm this or I'm that. These are what we call labels. And this can cause problems because whatever we label ourselves is how we perceive ourselves. And if we perceive ourselves to be this negative adjective or that negative adjective, we believe just as much. And when we believe these things, it affects our behavior and our future. We become limited. Our first flavor of labels are lies. Throughout life, there are various characteristics that others use to describe us. These may be true, or these might not be true. You might be called funny, you might be called weird. Your grandma might call you handsome, your classmate might call you ugly. Of course, not every one of these descriptors is a bad thing. Some are rightly known as compliments, but others are not so complimentary. Now, look, you might actually be ugly, and I can't help you with that. You'll have to figure that out on your own. I mean, geez, I can't fix everything. But regardless, let's return to the lies. Whatever bad thing others call you isn't the problem. It certainly isn't a great thing, but the problem is when you believe these things, and thereby label yourself these things. You could be called any number of insults and just brush them off. But oftentimes, we as human beings let these insults define ourselves. When we let these insults define ourselves, we believe these insults are the truth. And when we believe these things, we start becoming the epitome of these insults within our minds. If people repeatedly call you ugly, you may believe that you are ugly, regardless of whether it's true or not, which of course is subjective. The belief that you are ugly can subconsciously disincline you from partaking in various situations, motivations, and opportunities. For example, if you believe you are ugly, you may be disinclined to participate in a beauty contest or even social gatherings. These are just examples and may not be applicable to you. But I'm sure we can all relate to the fact that we all have beliefs about ourselves from comments that others have made throughout our life that make us feel disinclined to do or say certain things. There was a study done by Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson titled Pygmalion in the Classroom. In this study, they examined the results between elementary students whose teachers were informed that they were especially proficient in academics and students who were not deemed as such. In 1965, the authors conducted an experiment in a public elementary school telling teachers that certain children could be expected to be growth spurters based on the students' results on the Harvard test of inflected acquisition. In point of fact, the test was non-existent and those children designated as spurters were chosen at random. What Rosenthal and Jacobson hoped to determine by this experiment was the degree, if any, to which changes in teacher expectation produced changes in student achievement. The study produced interesting results. In the year of the experiment, the undesignated control group children gained over 8 IQ points, while the experimental group children, the special children, gained over 12. In earlier grades, the group of children that the teachers had higher expectations for, although just random children, performed much better than the children not deemed to have special academic ability. The results of the experiment we have described in some detail provide further evidence that one person's expectations of another's behavior may come to serve as a self-fulfilling prophecy. When teachers expected that certain children would show greater intellectual development, those children did show greater intellectual development. This shows, at least at younger ages, that the impressions and expectations of others can somewhat shape and mold you. I believe that if a person were to outright express these impressions or expectations, that you could take the expression as truth and go along believing such an expression, which, like I said earlier, can determine what you will and won't do. I have another study here to back this up. This study is by Bandura called Self-Efficacy Toward a Unifying Theory of Behavioral Change. The goal of this article? It presents an integrative theoretical framework to explain and to predict psychological changes achieved by different modes of treatment. This article is centered around the term self-efficacy. But what does that mean? Self-efficacy refers to an individual's belief in his or her capacity to execute behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. Self-efficacy reflects confidence in the ability to exert control over one's own motivation, behavior, and social environment. The theory is that one's self-efficacy expectations can affect one's behavior. The present theory is based on the principal assumption that psychological procedures, whatever their form, serve as a means of creating and strengthening expectations of personal efficacy. An efficacy expectation is the conviction that one can successfully execute the behavior required to produce the outcomes. In this conceptual system, expectations of personal mastery affect both initiation and persistence of coping behavior. The strength of people's convictions in their own effectiveness is likely to affect whether they will even try to cope with given situations. People fear and tend to avoid threatening situations they believe exceed their coping skills, whereas they get involved in activities and behave assuredly when they judge themselves capable of handling situations that would otherwise be intimidating. In other words, what a person believes about themselves affects their behavior. So, can the way people describe us, should we believe them, affect our behavior? Verbal persuasion is widely used because of its ease and ready availability. People are led, through suggestion, into believing they can cope successfully with what has overwhelmed them in the past. Yes. Now, this of course is talking in a positive context, but I believe it works both ways. In other words, if someone describes you a certain way or insults you, and you believe what they said to be true, it will have an effect on your behavior. If people call you ugly, and you believe that to be true, you might not go to that beauty contest. If you believe that you can't do something, you are correct. You can't. But only because you believe you can't. For as he thinks within himself, so he is. Proverbs 23:7. In addition to believing things based off of the input of others, we sometimes believe things based off of our own thoughts and feelings as well. For this point, I would like to turn to a paper by Hazel Marcus. In this paper, the terms self-schemata and self-schema are used frequently. What do they mean? According to the paper, self-schemata are cognitive generalizations about the self, derived from past experience that organize and guide the processing of self-related information contained in the individual's social experiences. In other words, past experiences influence how we see ourselves. They also give examples. Self-schemata include cognitive representations derived from specific events and situations involving the individual. An example, I hesitated before speaking in yesterday's discussion because I wasn't sure I was right, only to hear someone else make the same point, as well as more general representations derived from repeated categorization and subsequent evaluation of the person's behavior by himself and by others around him. Example, I am very talkative in groups of 3 or 4, but shy in large gatherings. I am generous. I am creative, or I am independent. Later in the doc, we see that the way we see ourselves may have an effect on our future. The concept of self-schema implies that information about the self in some area has been categorized or organized, and that the result of this organization is a discernible pattern which may be used as a basis for future judgments, decisions, inferences, or predictions about the self. Overall, the independent and the dependent subjects are relatively polarized in their estimations of the probabilities of these behaviors occurring, indicating that they are more certain about what types of behavior might be characteristic of them in particular settings. If that's not enough, the mere fact that experiences influence our self-perception, that I mentioned earlier, should be enough on its own. The way we see ourselves is what we believe about ourselves. And as I've covered earlier with Bandura's work, our beliefs affect our future. For as he thinks within himself, so he is. Proverbs 23:7. Before I move on to the next part, I want to say another thing. You may have noticed something in common between the last two categories. In both of them, I discussed personal beliefs that are negative, and how they can have effects on our future which are likewise negative. So how do we overcome these beliefs that limit us? We must acknowledge that these descriptions about ourselves aren't necessarily true. Look, I can't change what you believe, but you can. Surely you can believe that some of your former beliefs are not embedded in truth, right? Coming to this realization helps a lot. But in the next two categories, I'll share with you ways you can replace negative labels with good ones. Next up is external support. So what is external support? Remember the first category? You know how people might call you ugly or dumb, or even worse, a proficient League of Legends player? Well, people might not always use negative words to describe you. Some people might say positive things, such as, "Good job, you're doing great, looking good, wow, you're smart." I'm sure you get the gist. We already know from Albert Bandura's paper that verbal persuasion can affect our beliefs. Verbal persuasion is widely used because of its ease and ready availability. People are led, through suggestion, into believing they can cope successfully with what has overwhelmed them in the past. And we know from the same paper that this can affect our behavior. Expectations of personal mastery affect both initiation and persistence of coping behavior. People fear and tend to avoid threatening situations they believe exceed their coping skills, whereas they get involved in activities and behave assuredly when they judge themselves capable of handling situations that would otherwise be intimidating. If someone says that you look good enough times, you might just believe them. And if you believe them, you're a lot more likely to go to that beauty contest I mentioned earlier. So, we know that when people say good things about us, hopefully in honesty, it often produces positive results. So then, what do we do with this information? The lesson is to surround yourself with positive people. People that build each other up. Bonus points if you yourself build others up with sincere compliments. If you surround yourself with people that are throwing insults around, it will have an effect on you if you let the things they say get to your head. Surrounding yourself with people that are assuring and affirming will no doubt have a positive effect on your life. I strongly encourage that you be positive to others as well. We don't always have to rely on others for positive input in our lives though. We can also communicate to ourselves to influence our behaviors and beliefs. This is what we would call practicing self-affirmations. Studies have shown that affirmations have the power to change the course of your life. But how do they work? You know how we have many beliefs about ourselves that affect our behavior? It's kind of what I've been talking about. With affirmations, you can alter your beliefs and consequently alter your behavior. Let's say you're bad at cooking, or at least that's what you believe. If you practice affirmations on a daily basis, you can say, "I get better at cooking every day," or "I'm going to be a master at cooking pretty soon." These may be statements that you can believe as true, and by practicing these affirmations, you may find yourself excelling in your culinary craft, more so than before. You gotta be careful though, because making a statement that you don't believe can have a negative effect. If you say, "I am a great cook," when your problem is the belief of the opposite, then internally you're saying, "Yeah, I say that I'm a great cook, but I don't actually believe that." This just means that your disbelief in yourself is getting reinforced. When writing your affirmations or speaking them aloud, or whatever you do, it has to seem believable. Eventually, in your culinary craft, you'll be able to say, "I am a great cook," and actually believe it. Forgetting all the lies you've been told, surrounding yourself with positive people, and practicing affirmations will set you well on your way to breaking free from your limits, so that you can become unlimited. Thank you so much for watching my video. If it wasn't for the ideas expressed in this video, I would have never created it or the channel. If you liked the video and found the information in it useful, please consider giving the video a like, pressing that subscribe button, and sharing it with your friends. Thank you.